Some running backs just terrify me. Like, dear God, Antonio Gibson, can you not wait until at least the second preseason game to go out there and fumble? Are you really about to lose your job today? But to be honest, not every single one of these guys are players that you need to be avoiding in fantasy football drafts, because some of them actually have a real upside. So I'm going to go through, give you about 7 or 8 running backs that I am very scared that they'll either crush us in drafts if we fade them, or very scared that if we draft them, they will end up being the biggest bust in fantasy football. But before we get into it, guys, of course, please go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment asking any question you may have. I'm going to answer the first 100 comments we get on every single video going forward, trying to answer as many of your questions as possible. And let's dive right into the perfect example. The guy that gave me the idea for this video, Antonio Gibson. Here with Antonio Gibson, if you're looking at Underdog, right now he's being drafted as the running back 25. So right outside the top 24 running backs is a high-end running back 3. And you would assume that a running back going into year 3 of his NFL career that finished as the running back 19 his rookie season, finishes the running back 19 his second year, isn't this someone we want to assume gets better? Isn't this someone that we want to assume continues to improve, especially if we consider the fact that he'll probably have the best quarterback play of his entire career, and this Washington offense will probably be the best offensive environment he's played in since he entered the NFL. So there are some bullish signs with Gibson. And that's not even to mention the number one narrative that Antonio Gibson has in his favor. Antonio Gibson, when he was the running back 19 his rookie season, when he was the running back 19 his second year, he was just learning the running back position. His first year there was his first year at running back. His second year in the NFL, of course, was his second year at the running back position. He was an elite level prospect coming out with his raw, size-adjusted athleticism. An elite level athlete. Like if you compare him to Jonathan Taylor, they're pretty much the same running back if you're looking at that athletic profile. Now, what people were saying is, hell, he's going to be raw. He's going to take some time to develop in the NFL. But when he does develop, if he can do it correctly, he is going to have a truly elite level ceiling. So you can clearly see the path laid out where maybe it would just take a couple of years for this elite level athlete to kind of put things together at the running back position and to eventually work his way into being a top 5 running back in fantasy. Like that's the athletic profile that he has. And I've done the work. We've proven it already that athleticism is directly correlated to fantasy football success at the running back position in particular. Wide receiver doesn't really matter. Running back, it does. Now, there's the opposite side of the coin here. And this is what is truly scary about Antonio Gibson, because I can sell you that story on how maybe Antonio Gibson's finally undervalued, but to look at the moves the Washington Commanders made this offseason, it doesn't bode well for Antonio Gibson. They decided to bring back J.D. McKissic after J.D. McKissic signed with Buffalo. They did everything they could to get J.D. McKissic back in Washington. They did not just stop there. They decided to draft Brian Robinson Jr. in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. And at the time, we correctly identified, at least in my opinion, that the reasoning behind this was the lack of running back depth in Washington, combined with the fumbling issue that Antonio Gibson had last year. Antonio Gibson led the NFL in fumbles outside of quarterbacks, led the NFL in fumbles at the running back position. And if there was ever to be a player that we need to look at a fumbling issue and say, no, it's not a small sample occurrence. You only have like 5 fumbles in a season. That could just be random. No, if there was ever going to be a player where it would be a real issue, it's someone that never played the running back position, someone that never had to go up between the tackles and carry the ball 20 times in a single game. That would be the player I'm worrying about fumbles with. And we then see him fumble the ball week 1 of the preseason, his second carry in the preseason. So I am pretty concerned, very concerned, to be honest, that Brian Robinson Jr. is going to come out and eventually be splitting this backfield with Antonio Gibson on early downs. And if that happens, Antonio Gibson will be in a touch squeeze in the receiving game with J.D. McKissic, early downs with Brian Robinson, in one of the worst offenses in the NFL. So maybe you want to go through, maybe you want to bet on the athleticism, you want to bet on the raw upside Antonio Gibson may have, but at the same time, you can get burnt with that bet. I would love to know your opinion in the comment section. Let me know what you're doing with Antonio Gibson. I would say if you're drafting in like a casual format, like if you're drafting on ESPN or something and you would have to draft Antonio Gibson in the 4th, 5th round, Avoid at all cost. Avoid at all cost. But I've actually seen on Underdog Fantasies of late, Antonio Gibson fall into the 8th round consistently. And in a format like that, where we're chasing that elite level ceiling, 8th, 9th round Antonio Gibson, I feel like at that price point, you kind of have to roll the dice. You kind of have to go for him, even though it does scare me. And real quick, of course, if you want to go draft Antonio Gibson in the 8th, 9th round, you want to go draft with us on the live stream every single night, maybe just hop into a draft in the public lobby, have some fun with your friends, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. You can find the link in the description of this video. You can find the link in the comment section. And when you sign up for Underdog Fantasy, use promo code FLOCK. They'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. And with a minimum of a $10 deposit with promo code FLOCK, you are going to get our 2022 rankings and our 2022 fantasy football draft guide. 300 pages of info with a $10 deposit. Please make sure you take advantage of that. And now, our next running back I want to talk about here is not necessarily going to be someone that I'm wanting to draft, but I think he could negatively impact someone else we like, James Robinson. James Robinson is terrifying all the shares that I have with Travis Etienne. With Etienne, I thought we were getting a discount DeAndre Swift at the 3-4 turn earlier this offseason with the assumption that James Robinson was going to be placed in the PUP, with the assumption that, hell, James Robinson tore his Achilles 6 months ago. He may not even play at all in 2022. Okay, well, we were so wrong in that. James Robinson's out there. He's been crushing training camp, and now it looks like James Robinson is going to be good to go week 1. And now, I still stand by the fact that I think there's that real ceiling with Travis Etienne. With Travis Etienne, we've always called him DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara. They're all the same guy. They're all the same guy. They're going to get every single high-value touch out of their backfield. They're going to get every target and touch in the red zone. That's why I wasn't worried about DeAndre Swift being limited with Jamal Williams in Detroit last year. Hell, Jamal Williams, you're more than welcome to come over. Come over, get the carries between the 20-yard lines. Who gives a damn when those carries don't equal fantasy points? I mean, you can have 10 of those carries, come away with 40 rushing yards, and hell, you took 4 points from us? Big freaking deal. If James Robinson takes the Jamal Williams role in Detroit, where, yeah, Jamal Williams getting a ton of touches in Detroit, but it doesn't freaking matter because they're carries between the 20s. I am not going to be concerned with Travis Etienne, and I'm still drafting Travis Etienne in the 4th round aggressively. But there's a big but on this. There's the outside chance that James Robinson has the role in the red zone. And if James Robinson is the goal line running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars, all of a sudden Travis Etienne, who we've been drafting in the 4th round, is going to magically turn into fancy J.D. McKissick. He'll be a lot closer to J.D. McKissick. He'll be a lot closer to Nyheim Hines than he is DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones. So it all comes down to James Robinson in the red zone usage you have in this Jacksonville Jaguars offense. I would love to know what you were thinking. But now let's move on to our next running back. This is going to be Ezekiel Elliott, someone else that's going in the 4th round. And here with Ezekiel Elliott, I mean, we've been on record saying, I understand a lot of people want to just blame it on the injury he played through last year. Like, you look at the torn PCL, people go, oh, okay, well, that's why Ezekiel Elliott was bad. That's why Tony Pollard looked better at times. Ezekiel Elliott's going to be healthy this season, and Ezekiel Elliott's going to go out there and crush. But I can't say that same thing, because if that was just a random occurrence, if it looked like Ezekiel Elliott, 100 rushing yards a game, 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 then 50, hell, maybe we can blame it on the injury. But the issue is, if you go through and you look at Ezekiel Elliott, this would make sense, the downfall we're seeing. The only other running back that's active in the NFL right now that has more touches, Mark Ingram. Ezekiel Elliott's the 2nd highest running back in the NFL with active career touches. If you include the playoffs, he's over 2,000. So that's a massive concern. That's a massive red flag. Look at the workload. Look at the tread on those tires. And also, this is a continued trend with Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott, if we go back to his rookie season, has only decreased his rushing yards per game. He's gone from 108 to 98 to 95 to 84 to 65 to 58. When it's a continued trend, it's really hard to just go through and blame that on a singular injury last year. I don't love the Ezekiel Elliott price in fantasy. I don't love the Tony Pollard price in fantasy. I don't know who the hell I'm drafting in that Dallas Cowboys backfield. Now, let's go over to another running back here. Let's look at Mr. Elijah Mitchell. Here with Elijah Mitchell, I don't necessarily want to be concerned with his talent. I think Elijah Mitchell is a very good running back, but what I do need to be concerned about is the usage we have seen over the years with Kyle Shanahan running backs in San Francisco. Because Elijah Mitchell, at the end of the day, doesn't look that special on paper. I mean, this is a day 3 running back that really has no team investment whatsoever. I mean, guys like Trey Sermon, Tyrion Davis-Price, both on this roster, have more invested into them. Now, not saying you should be drafting those players over Elijah Mitchell, of course. Elijah Mitchell is my favorite running back to end up being the starter in San Francisco to lead this team in overall rush attempts. But there are some serious red flags in this Elijah Mitchell profile. If we go through and look at Kyle Shanahan's lead running back since he's taken over as the head coach for the San Francisco 49ers, 2017, Carlos Hyde. 2018, Matt Breida. 2019, Tevin Coleman. 2020, Jeff Wilson. 2021, Elijah Mitchell. He's never had someone repeat. Never. Maybe you want to make the argument, well, Mason, Elijah Mitchell's the most talented running back out of this group. Sure, if you want to make that argument, I can 100% get behind it. But that's why Elijah Mitchell is being drafted in the 6th round. That's why people are willing to go out there and say, hell, Elijah Mitchell's starting running back for the 49ers. What is there to be worried about? But I would not be too surprised if we're looking back 12 months from now, and then next to 2022 for the leading rusher, you have a Trey Sermon. You have a Tyrion Davis-Price. You have maybe a repeat in Jeff Wilson. You just have someone else at the top of this list. And we all remember back on the year where Elijah Mitchell, the day 3 draft pick, the player that came from nowhere, was just yet again another Kyle Shanahan system running back that he was able to cycle through. Now, let's go over to a running back that we've talked about for a long time, and I am happy to see that people are now fixing their ways, in my opinion. Here with Rashaad Penny, I've said this time and time again, he's not going to be the starting running back in Seattle by week 6, 7, or 8. And if he is the starting running back in Seattle, he's going to be in a committee. With Rashaad Penny, he's always had the ability. We go back and look at our running back prospect model. Rashaad Penny, coming out of school, was scoring next to guys like Todd Gurley, Jonathan Taylor, Ezekiel Elliott, Joe Mixon, CMC, DeAndre Swift, Dalvin Cook. Like, that's where Rashaad Penny is. I think he's an elite level talent that was proven at the end of last year. And I want to feel like maybe we were right. Maybe we were right to always say go buy low on Rashaad Penny when he was a waiver wire player. But the ability that Rashaad Penny has always lacked is availability. The most important ability. Rashaad Penny is a running back that simply cannot stay healthy with a full-time workload. And this is why this is a running back that was drafted back in 2018. The same draft class as Nick Chubb. Thinking about Nick Chubb's entire career, everything Nick Chubb's done. Rashaad Penny was drafted in the 1st round in that class, and he has a total of six games started. You have to be worried about injuries. You have to be worried about the fact that this team went and drafted Kenneth Walker in the beginning of the 2nd round this past season. And you have to be worried that even if Rashaad Penny stays healthy, fights off the 2nd round draft pick in Kenneth Walker through the course of the entire season, he's going to be earning a starting job in the worst offense in the NFL, behind the worst offensive line in the NFL with Drew Lock or Geno Smith at quarterback. Like, there's no reason to be drafting Penny here. If you want a running back in Seattle, the guy you take is Kenneth Walker. You take the ascending player, the player that just got the team investment, the future of the team, especially if we're looking for that production to be in the back half of the season where the fantasy football playoffs and bye weeks are. Now, our next running back is someone that falls in this list because I'm definitely worried, but at the same time, I'm drafting the hell out of him. Cam Akers. Here with Cam Akers, this is a running back that if you look at the efficiency this past season when he did return in the playoff stretch, Akers did not look anything close to the running back that he was before the torn Achilles. And of course, if we go through and we look at the track record of running backs with torn Achilles, how many examples of guys do we actually have working out? I mean, Donta Foreman, is that it? The guy who took 2-3 years to make it back? There are some serious red flags here with Akers, but this is an example of a player that I think the red flags are more than baked into his draft price, where if I go back and if I remind y'all where Cam Akers was being drafted last year before the torn Achilles, Cam Akers was a 1st round selection. He was a 1st round selection before the torn Achilles. If you don't believe me, Thomas, please throw up that screenshot right here. That was because Cam Akers was an elite level prospect coming out of Florida State. Hell, he was the number 1 high school recruit in the country going to Florida State. But he was an elite level prospect coming out of college. And at the end of his rookie season, he just went and crushed. Even in the NFL playoffs, Cam Akers was out there balling. So with Akers, I think he's an elite level talent if healthy. And on top of this, I think he's playing in an elite level offense, and you were getting that discount based on the torn Achilles. The discount's warranted because the torn Achilles is very scary, but I would be worried about not drafting Cam Akers. Like, if I'm not drafting Cam Akers in round 5, am I really trying to win my league? But I think that's all I got for y'all. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. If you did, please go down there, drop a like in the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with any question you may have. I'll try to get to as many of those as I can. That's all I got for you. Really appreciate you, and I hope I get to draft with you in the live stream tonight.